Hey friends, this is Nancy with a special invitation that you and your family check out the Clubhouse. The Clubhouse is a community for Catholic kids. We offer incredible live events each month where we craft, we pray, we learn about virtues with Sir Roland, and we talk to a real life religious order. It's an incredible experience. I just love being on these calls, meeting you, and growing in the faith with you. So if you'd like to check it out, just check the notes for this podcast episode. Each week we have a different live event, and I'll be thrilled to see you there. Okay, here's today's episode. You're listening to
Catholic Sprout,
the daily podcast for Catholic kids that strives to plant seeds of faith.
Hello, Sprouts. Today is Monday, October 21st, 2024. Today is also the feast of Saint Hilarion, and we're in the 29th week of Ordinary Time. I'm Kelly Mantoan, the founder of Accepting the Gift, a ministry which supports the parents of children with disabilities. I'm here as a guest host on the Catholic Sprouts podcast to talk to you about some of my favorite saints, all of whom just happen to have disabilities. Today, I want to tell you the story of Saint Germaine Cuisine. Germaine lived in France in the late 1500s. She was born with what today we would call a limb difference. Her right hand was misshapen and paralyzed. Her mother had died while Germaine was still an infant, and her father remarried a woman who didn't like Germaine because of her disability and her ill health. Her stepmother was cruel towards her, and Germaine's father did not stop the abuse. Germaine was forced to sleep in the family's barn, and instead of going to school, she was required to watch her family's sheep. But despite her poor health, her hunger and her thirst, because her stepmother wouldn't even give her enough to eat, Germaine wasn't bitter or angry, even when her stepmother would hit her. One day, Germaine went to feed beggars that had come to the family's house, which was something she loved to do. And that sent her stepmother into a rage. She saw Germaine holding something in her apron and accused Germaine of stealing bread from her family to feed beggars. And so, hitting Germaine, the stepmother demanded she open her apron. When Germaine did so, miraculously, a huge amount of roses fell out on the ground. Despite her lack of education and religious instruction, Germaine developed a close relationship with God. She would leave her sheep in God's protection every day so she could go to Mass. And on her way, she would often need to pass through a stream, which during the rainy season, or when lots of snow had melted, could be filled with fast-moving water. But the villagers saw how sometimes the water would part in two, so Germaine could walk through on dry ground without getting wet. Sort of just like Moses in the parting of the Red Sea. And despite all the wolves that lived around, Germaine's sheep were always safe and waiting for her when she got back from Mass. In fact, instead of wandering off, which sheep are known to do, they would all be seated in a circle around her shepherdess staff, waiting patiently for her to return. While watching her sheep, she would often pray the rosary or educate little children from the village about their Catholic faith. On the night she died, at the young age of 22, a priest happened to be traveling through her town. But because it was so dark, remember there were no street lights back then, he had to stop for the night. All of a sudden, he noticed a little way off in the distance, angels flying from heaven down to a barn and then carry a young girl off to heaven. The next day, as soon as it was light, he inquired about the town. Who was this young saintly girl, and where could he find her? The townsfolk told him of Germaine, and he went to the barn where she lived and found her father kneeling and crying near her body. Soon after her death, miracles were attributed to her. Her feast day is now June 15th. Tomorrow, we're going to learn about another saint who developed a deep love of God despite people not always being nice to him. St. Joseph Cupertino.
That's it for Catholic Sprouts today. We'll be back tomorrow, but until then, continue to grow in your faith and truly sprout into the beautiful creation that God created you to be.
Hi parents, I'm Kelly Mantoan, the founder of Accepting the Gift, a ministry for parents of children with disabilities. I'm sharing the stories of some of my favorite saints this week, all of whom happen to have disabilities. Maybe you've heard of some of them, or maybe they're all new to you. These saints display a range of disabilities that will help your children learn that everyone, regardless of their abilities, can serve the Lord. I encourage you to look up more information on this week's saints and seek out other stories of saints with disabilities. There's more than you think. These saints are a wonderful example of how our church can include, serve, and ultimately benefit from the gifts of disabled people.
This podcast is part of the Spoke Street Network. For more great podcasts, visit spokestreet.com.